First of all, we heard there was rumours a couple of suppliers or manufacturers were going directly to the consumer, and I brushed it off at first. I thought, this is not really occurring, but recently we've seen it. We've seen some advertising for it, and it's a bit of a concern. This is the monitoring station's business. It's now been undermined by a couple of manufacturers and suppliers of communication equipment where they're bypassing the monitoring station, bypassing the installer, going directly to the consumer. And this has only been the last probably 6 months, but it's stepping up and we're seeing more and more of it. I mean, you think about you get a supplier of this particular hardware. I'm not going to mention names, but everybody knows who we're talking about. There's two of them. But you get a supplier, just like Suretek and Multicom, we get to know who the end user is. They've got a SIM card in their device. They've got the app. They've registered the app with us. We know who they are. We know what monitoring station. We know what install. And we even know who the consumer is. And we support that downline. But what we're seeing is these guys going directly now to the consumer to upgrade or to update, as they're calling it, to go direct monitoring. And they're attracted by that, and they might save a few dollars, but they're cutting out the monitoring station. So these suppliers that were normally selling something at wholesale, they're now selling it at retail. So basically they've used these monitoring stations and they've used these installers along the way to gather the audience and now dealing direct with the customer. The reason why I'm speaking up is because so many monitoring stations are coming to us now with concerns, and I say to them, well, you're talking to the wrong people. You really need to go back to these manufacturers and to these suppliers and say, hey, if you continue to do this, we're no longer going to use your product. And I think that's what they should do. To me, it's unethical. It's just not right. It's no different than I said before, the Ford dealership and Ford factory bypassing the dealership and going directly to the consumer. I mean, I know everything's changing in the world, the way things work and the way we buy online. We don't go into stores anymore, the whole Amazon thing and all the rest of it. But in this particular case, people need to have a look. There is room for self-monitoring, but do it in an ethical way. Don't go and supply your hardware to a security company or monitoring station, learn who those customers are, and then bypass that security control and going directly to the consumer to pick up the extra cash. And that's all it is that they're doing. They're no longer wholesaling, they're retailing. It's certainly something that Suretek will never do, certainly not on my watch. We will never go directly to the consumer. We support the monitoring stations and the installers. I think monitoring centres, and I know some of them are doing it already, where they're getting together and they're going back to these manufacturers and saying, you do this, we swap brands. I think they should put pressure on them. If they like using the product, continue to use the product, but put pressure on them not to be able to go direct to retail. That shouldn't be allowed. It should not be allowed. Like I say, you'll never find Suretek doing that. We'll only ever build systems that include the monitoring station, enable the monitoring station to offer a bigger and better service to the consumer. You'll never find a product come out of Suretek that circumvents the monitoring station or goes directly to the consumer. That's not what we're about. We, on the other hand, have a vested interest in monitoring stations. Just over 90% of monitoring stations in Australia use our software. Most of those on cams. There's still a few on ADSW that are swapping over to the cams. Out of the estimated 1.4 million monitor burglar alarms in Australia, the Suretek software is managing over 1 million of those. And the other 400 is between the rest of the players. So we have a big value vested interest in monitoring stations. They are our business, so we will never bypass them. But you do get some people that say, look, we can't afford the monitoring. We want to maybe self-monitor. Let the monitoring station provide that service to them and still make a few dollars, still be connected to the customer and maybe win them back to full monitoring at a later date. Manufacturers should not go directly to the retail customer. It's just wrong.